Welcome to a brand new opposition preview. First game of the season against Southampton, and I'm joined by Dan here from the Saints View to look ahead to that game. Dan, thank you for joining me. Premier League football is finally back. It's been a short season, a short pre-season for Palace. What's it like being for you guys, and also going into this game? What's the mood like amongst the fans?
Well, the pre-season's been almost non-existent. We've played one game that we've reported. Apparently, we played Fulham on the weekend and lost 2-1. The club didn't report anything about that, but the other game was a 7-1 win over Swansea. So it's all been very, very hush-hush for us. And I don't think we've been playing many games. Our under-23s have played, I think, 2 championship sides. But in terms of the first team, there's not really been any sort of 90-minute action. But in terms of the mood's been the best it's been for probably about 5 years going into a new season. It's all very sort of bright and rosy going into this new campaign. Obviously, we finished the last season so strongly. And for pretty much the entire second half of the season, we were looking very solid under Roy Hodgson after a slow start. So for us, I think everyone's really excited. You know, this team could do something very special, and we're all optimistic, I think.
Yeah, he's a different kind of manager in terms of the football that he plays. He's very tactical, likes to press, I believe. We've seen that. So, what was it like last season under him? Because there was that transition period where, at the start of the season, I believe it was a Leicester game where was it 8-2 or something like that. I think
The
after that,
9-0, the 9-0,
9-0,
yeah.
no, yeah, 9-0. Sorry, yeah,
Mm.
9-0, which is crazy for a Premier League team to lose. But it seems like things have gone well. So what was it? Is it just time, or has he adapted his tactic to the Premier League?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of everything. Of course, that 9-0 was just, yeah, we don't need, it's mad that we're still talking about it, but it's obviously a massive turning point.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's a bit, like I said, I think it's a bit of everything. I think it's knowing his best starting 11. I think it's going back to his tactics that worked at Leipzig, the formation, the 4-2-2. You know, we were so negative at the start of last season with a back five when we thought we were going to be using this old Leipzig formation with the high press, but literally almost starting from scratch, going back to basics, going back to what he knows so well and what he's been successful with. It sounds so simple, but really it it took ages to be implemented. But I think, yeah, also he's understanding the league. You know, he knows that the leagues are way more competitive than it would have been back in the Bundesliga with Leipzig. And like I said before, I think also having players, changing them around a little bit, knowing who his best team is. For example, Stuart Armstrong, that's one player I like to use as an example. He got nowhere near the team for the first couple of months of the season, came back in after the 9-0, I think it was against Arsenal. We drew 2-2. He was magnificent and basically wasn't taken out for the rest of the season. One of our best players of the campaign. Last year. So it's little things like that. And obviously having a defence, finding a consistent defence, two centre backs that are always playing together, that are used to each other. Also having Ryan Bertrand on the left, we needed a new right back. And so that's what we did so well in the sort of after the restart, because we had Carl Walker-Peters in there. So literally our team hardly changed at all during those sort of 7, 8, 9 games. And I think that's obviously why we finished so strongly.
Yeah. So before we actually go and talk about some of the transfers that you guys have done, what's your honest perspective on Palace under Roy Hodgson and how we done last season in terms of, do you think he's a manager that can lead us forward? He's been so negative in terms of his football play, where we only scored 31 goals in 38 games. What's your thoughts on that?
I think Palace are very stale at the moment. I don't think Roy Hodgson is the man to take Palace forwards. I'm kind of looking at their past couple of seasons, and you guys have been in the league for one season less in terms of your consecutive run than us. And when you compare the two sides, we've had 2 seasons in Europe, a couple top half finishes. Palace have had one top half finish in there. The rest have been sort of mid-table obscurity. And you'd like to think that by now, Palace would have made, as an outsider, Palace would have made maybe a push for Europe in one of those seasons. And now it's kind of looking like aging squad. Of course, I think Eze's a good signing, a bit of youth, Ferguson as well, so some younger signings. But overall, I'm thinking that squad's not looking like it's going to be doing much football at this level in the next couple of seasons. I think it's maybe got this year, and then it's looking stale. I think Roy Hodgson isn't the man to take them forward. I think way more recruitment is needed. It just seems like there's not much going on.
Yeah, it's a bit weird in terms of Palace because it seems like we're in a transition period in our eighth year in the Premier League, or 7 or 8 years, I'm not too sure. Where it's gone back and forward. We've had some dodgy managers, but enough about Palace. Let's talk about some of your new players. Have you got any new players that you've signed during the summer, and also can we expect to see them have the debut against Palace? And also in terms of your transfers, have you been happy so far?
I'll start off with that point. Yeah, I've been happy. I think, satisfied definitely now that we're a month away from the end of it. The main areas for us was we needed a new centre back, a new right back, and a new central midfielder because Pierre Højbjerg was always leaving. We've got two of those positions. We're just waiting on the central midfielder now, and I'll say it now, and I think a lot of Saints fans will agree with me. It's absolutely vital that we bring in a more defensive-minded midfielder in this window. It won't happen before the game on Saturday. It probably won't happen until the end of the month, to be honest with you. But apart from that, the two signings we've made have been very happy with. Mohamed Salisu, very highly rated centre back in terms of Europe, was linked with Real Madrid, Manchester United, and he's come to Southampton. And we met his release clause of £10.9 million, and I really think it's going to be an absolute steal for him. And then Kyle Walker-Peters was a bit more of a simple signing. Came in on loan back in January from Tottenham, settled into the side really nicely post lockdown, and fitted into the side perfectly. An offensive fullback who likes to go forward, but also can do the scrappy work at the back. £12 million fee. It was a very simple deal for us. We needed the right back as opposed to looking for other options. It seemed that only right to go and get Cole back in. So yeah, I'd be probably saying it's about a 6 or a 7 out of 10. We needed to sell Højbjerg. He wanted to go. Harrison Reed as well. We weren't going to get in his way of a move to Fulham. We've got Lamina out on loan. There's just a few more deadwood players that we need to get out. And that's when the window will be sort of pushing to the 8 or 9 out of 10 region. If we can get a central midfielder in, a bit of deadwood out, we'll be laughing.
Well, if you want a central midfielder, we've got James McCarthy, previously at Everton. He's at Palace. So if you want a central midfielder, we'll happily give him to you if you guys want him. But let's talk about our next point. And this guy's a killer. I hate talking about him because he's just a threat, even just thinking about this guy coming against us. And that's Danny Ings. There's been reports out there that he could potentially be injured, but he's on the bench today for England. So it seems like he might be a fit for the Palace game. But it's been a crazy career for him because, of course, at Liverpool, he didn't have the game time and he's had a couple of injuries. But for Southampton, for you guys, how would you describe this guy in terms of his play? He's just a finisher, isn't he?
He's unreal. He's absolutely unreal. Finisher, fox in the box, whatever you want to call him. He scores goals. It's simply put, but it's not just that. He's an exceptional footballer on the ball. It helps that he's a boyhood Saints fan. I think as soon as we signed him initially on loan 2 years ago, and everyone found out that he was from the area, he was a boyhood fan, rejected by the academy as a youngster. Everyone warmed to him instantly. Dodgy first season, it has to be said, with those injury problems. But I think he really sort of got stuck in. The physios really helped him, the fitness team at Saints. And during the pre-season before last, so a year ago now, I don't know what they did behind the scenes, but it worked because he hardly had any sort of injury concern last year. And that's why he was a 25-goal scoring striker.
Do you think he can do the same this season?
I do. I don't think 25. I think he can definitely knock on the door of 20, but it's not really a concern for us because now that we've seen Shea Adams sort of click in the Premier League, I definitely think that they're going to be a dangerous duo. I think it's more about them as a duo this season as opposed to just Danny Ings on his own. I think definitely look out for Shea Adams as well because they formed a really dangerous partnership in the last couple of games of the season. I think Adams bagged, I want to say, I think it was 4 goals in a couple of games. He did really well. Obviously, that stunning goal against Man City with the lob. So I'd say look out for him as well this year.
Yeah. In terms of Palace, are there any players that you're potentially worried about? Of course, there's Wilfried Zaha. I guess you're going to mention him, but any other players?
Yeah, of course, I've got to say Zaha. I think Eze's a good signing. Whether he'll hit the ground running in the Premier League, we'll obviously have to see because we know with Adams, it took a bit of time to make the adjustment from the Championship. I always like Miljevic. I think from set pieces, he's a danger. Of course, if we give away a penalty or even a free kick in decent position, and we talk about Ward-Prowse being such a good set piece taker, I think Miljevic is a very good one. And then you look at the defence, and I'm not sure if Cahill's fit. If he is, he's a big leader at the back. Someone maybe we could have done with when he came to Palace. But I think sort of offensively, Zaha's the main one. I like Ayew. I think he did well last year. You know, he defied a lot of critics, but Zaha definitely has to be the main man.
You mentioned Ward-Prowse. What's going on between Zaha and Ward-Prowse and Southampton and Palace? Because
Oh, mate,
I'll be honest. I know that you don't like Wilfried Zaha. I know that you don't like him as a player, especially when it comes against you. I guess so. Is that true?
yeah, I mean, it was just funny, man. It was just
Yeah,
funny. It was
but
just you asked for it.
But there's rivalry. I don't know where it's come from, but Ward-Prowse and Zaha, and similar feeling. Palace fans were annoyed with Ward-Prowse, but it seemed like
Mm.
them two. It could be an interesting watch because you might see Ward-Prowse going at Zaha again. Because Zaha does lose his temper. I'll admit that he does lose his temper, especially if you annoy him. So Ward-Prowse is doing something smart. But the reason why I get annoyed with Zaha is the fact that you know that these players are going to come at you, and he lets it get into his head, but. Enough of Zaha versus Ward-Prowse, but that's another thing to watch out for, I think, on the weekend. But where do you see the game being won and lost in terms of maybe the midfield, the attack? Would Danny Ings would be the tipping point for you guys?
Yeah, I definitely think obviously having a 25 goal scoring striker in your side helps a lot.
Mm.
Um, I think definitely one in the midfield. I think we'll dominate possession. In all honesty, I know it's your home game, but we were so strong away from home last year, and I think that form's going to continue only because we've only had a month and a half off. Um, our midfield, I'd say, is decent. With Romain and Ward-Prowse, I wouldn't say it's as good as it could be, but I certainly think it's going to be I think it's going to be a scrappy game. I think it will be tight. I back us to score goals in this one, but I certainly think it's going to be a tight affair. If we're not focused 100%, then we know that Palace can obviously punish us. I know we've mentioned him before, but a player like Zaha, can create something out of nothing. Um, Even the same with Ayew, in all honesty. And I think as well, like we said, we don't know what's going to happen, but Eze could easily be that man as well. So we've got to be aware. We can't be making silly mistakes. That was one of our main areas of concern last year. But I'd like to think that we'll have enough to win the game. And obviously, I guess we'll talk about predictions a little bit later.
Yeah, we can talk about predictions now. In fact, let's just have your score predictions and also your lineup as well, potential lineup that you think that you might go out with.
I'll start with the lineup. So I think it's going to be basically the exact same to what we finished the season with. I don't think Mohamed Salisu is quite yet ready to come into the side. I think it'll be Alex McCarthy in goal, obviously ex-Palace player, Ryan Bertrand and Cole Walker-Peters as fullbacks, and then Jack Stevens and Jan Bednarek as centre-backs. A midfield pairing of Ward-Prowse and Ora Romeu, with Redmond on the left, Stuart Armstrong on the right, and then I think it's going to be Shea Adams and Danny Ings up front. Like I said, I think it'll be a tight game, but I think we'll have enough over the line to get ourselves over the line. Sorry, we've won our last 3 trips to Palace. I think it's going to be a 2-1 win for us.
Yeah, someone else from our podcast also said the same, 2-1 Southampton win. But for me, I would be happy with a 1-1 draw, due to the fact that you don't want to start the season off, especially with what happened with us last season. It was the fact that we lost 7 games in a row towards the end of the season. So you don't want to start the season off on a bad note. So hopefully Palace start it off with a draw at least. But I would be
It's
happy
definitely
with that.
possible. Sorry to interrupt, man, but it's definitely possible. I was just going to say we've got the worst record for match week 1 in the entire Premier League. We haven't won on the opening day since 2013. That could be a blessing in disguise for Palace. I would not be surprised if this was a draw.
Oh, that's crazy. Since 2013. Why
Yeah,
is
we
that?
haven't won on the opening days. I don't know. It's because there haven't been difficult games either. I think we've had like Burnley, Swansea, Watford, name a few in the last couple of seasons. Newcastle away. It's all been draws or losses. So obviously we'll have to see whether we can break that duck this time round.
Exactly. Also, leave down your comments down below. Let us know of your score predictions, whether you think Palace could potentially win this game. I know some Palace fans are still not quite sure about next season, so leave down your comments down below. And thank you, Dan, for joining me today.
No worries,
Hopefully,
man.
Palace will get the point. I know you want your team to win, but hopefully Palace will
Yeah.
get the point, and a draw would be good for both sides. So yeah, check out the Saints View, check out the Southampton fan channel, Dan's channel. Check them out, and also good luck for the game, Dan.
Yeah, top man. Thanks for having me on.